we need to make much time to be with God in prayer in these days. You see, they are walking on the road and they're talking to Jesus. So I see this as the place of prayer. They're talking to Jesus. They're walking with him and they're talking to him. To me, this is the place of prayer. We need to make much of the Lord in these days in the place of prayer, in order so that he can reveal himself to us through his word. Yeah. I encourage you, get into your word so that your heart can be sifted, so that your heart can find encouragement, so that your heart can be stilled, so that your confidence can be restful in a God who is with us, in a God who has not abandoned us, in a Jesus who is in the midst of us. He used the scriptures in order for them to re-identify who he was and where he was. And in our lives, it is exactly what we need in this moment. I'm going to encourage you, do not minimize the place of prayer in these days. Yeah. But turn your attention to the Lord. You see, some of us have more time right now on our hands because some of our other activities have been removed. But the removal of the activities in our life has not brought about a more restful place in our heart. You see, because you can sever activities, but rest is not activity or lack of activity. And this is the point. We need to declutter our hearts from all of the focus on current events so that we are not trying to interpret Jesus by informing our heart with all of what is happening circumstantially, but so that we can turn our faces to the Lord. These are days to get face to face with God. These are days to dig deep wells of intimacy with Jesus in the place of prayer, in the place of worship, in our meditation, and the fixing of our attention on the word of the Lord, so that we can anchor our hearts in the scriptures, so that as we turn to the scriptures, he can begin to speak about himself to our hearts, so that he can reveal himself to us in the scriptures. These are days to linger in the place of prayer with Jesus. These are days to learn in an increasing way how to dig deep wells of intimacy with God and to be people of communion with God. He begins to use the scriptures to speak about them as he reveals himself. He uses the scriptures as a way to reveal himself. I really believe with all of my heart that as you turn your attention to the word, you're going to begin to see Jesus. Yeah. And that as you begin to see Jesus, for he is the word, right? We understand that part of loving Jesus well is loving the word. It's you can't love him if you don't love the word. For he is the word, who was the word in the beginning, and the word that came and tabernacled among us. But as you turn your attention to the word, I believe he's going to reveal himself, and that you're going to begin to see him. And as you see him, you will be able to then rightly interpret all of the things that are happening culturally and circumstantially. Yeah. It'll make it incredibly difficult if you try to do it in reverse order. We must see our circumstances in and through Jesus instead of looking solely at our circumstances and then trying to find Jesus. But he continues on with them, and as they come to the point where they realize they are going to have to make a turn, it says he acts as if he's going to continue on. But they tug on him. They urge him. They say, come home with us. We're living in a moment right now where we understand in a very real way that we have had to bring Jesus home with us. And for some, that's a familiar thing because we've already been cultivating our heart posture and our day-to-day life rhythm as ones who develop our experience of Jesus in and out of our homes. But for others, this potentially has produced some confusion or some conflict or some difficulty because we are accustomed to being able to find Jesus in other places. But the idea of having to now try to navigate my life being anchored in my house, at least that's for us. I know in Florida right now we have in our county a stay-at-home order. Maybe many of you are experiencing the same thing. But they urge him, come home with us. Come home with us. And he goes with them. We need to be encouraged that Jesus goes home with us. Yeah. That there's a lot of other ways that maybe over time we've grown accustomed to interacting with Jesus. That in these days right now we may not be able to enjoy or leverage as readily as we used to. I know public gatherings and such have been limited and in other places have been just outright canceled and severed altogether. But we need to be encouraged that yes, though we enjoy public gatherings, that we can take Jesus home with us. That you don't have to put your walk with Jesus on pause until the day that we hopefully are able to resurrect our corporate or our public gatherings, so to speak. That right now, in the midst of wherever you may be, your home address, your bedroom, your living room, you as an individual, you as a husband and a wife, you as a father and a mother with your children, leading your family in these days, the complications of what's happening on the outside do not have to derail the intimacy that you know on the inside of Jesus coming home with you. But I pray that in these days, God would set your house on fire as you learn to turn your attention to Jesus in an intimate way, to urge him in these days. Lord, we need you right here. We need you right here in the middle of my living room. I maybe have never done it. I may not even know how to do it. There may be something in me that is completely against it and just doesn't even want to do it. But Lord, right here in the middle of my living room, on the floor in my bedroom, no lights, camera, action, no big time, whether dozens or hundreds or thousands of people round about. Lord, right now, I am my own worship leader. I'm going to lead my life in worship and intimacy and devotion because I know that as I urge you, you're going to come home with me. You're going to come home with me. And as you find him in the secret place in these days, may you be provoked in a greater way than you have ever known to realize that he's not walked away from you, but that he's right there in the midst, and that your heart posture in these days, let us make much of Jesus in the secret place in these days.